G'day everyone, welcome to another CSBP Fertilisers Market Update. I'm Johnston, joined as ever by our Sales Strategy and Reliability Manager, Ben Sudlow. Hello Ben.
G'day Gray, good morning.
Good morning to you, good to have you back, and let's talk about what's been happening in the last couple of weeks of global fertiliser. Now we're back in the rhythm of doing these somewhat frequently. There's probably less to catch up on, so just in terms of, I guess, the seaborne nitrogen market, there have been a little bit of movements up and down in that market in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, of all the nutrients, that's the one that's been of most interest, well, most movement, most change. Since we last spoke was a couple of weeks ago. We spent a lot of time talking about the exchange rate a couple of weeks ago, and that's stayed relatively down. I know it jumped a little bit last night, but around that 62.5 cent mark. But in that time, urea prices have gone up about $15 a tonne. And if you remember last time we spoke, India gone for a tender. They were looking for 1.5 million tonnes. They ended up taking about 180,000. We said then they were going to come back for market for more, which they did, not long after we ran the last podcast. Looking for 1.5 million in this tender. That closes on the 23rd. So what's that? A couple of days from now.
Yep.
That's just kept the momentum in the market. So urea on the back of that. India have said that that's for delivery through to the end of the first week in March. And what that has given the producers and the traders view that then February volumes are going to be well supplied through the Indian tender. So I think right now we wait for the outcome of that, because what we know over many years of these Indian tenders, and this one back to back, is they tend to exaggerate movements both up and down beyond what might be normal market movements.
Okay, so that is what's been happening in the spot markets, which we follow very closely, but not so much a relevant procurement time at the moment for the West Australian market. But we are reflecting that pricing as it goes through to our list price at the moment.
Yeah, that's right, Gray, because we're not that far away. In coming month, we'll be having to start getting urea shipments lined to come in for seeding. So we're not far away, and clearly as we get close to the time when we're fixing those ships, we'll be looking at bearing the reality of those prices in our sell prices, of course.
And then we talked Flexen, UAN, last time we caught up as well,
Yep.
and there had been some, for the first time in a while, some upward movement in that following the sort of movement we'd seen in the granular nitrogen market. Anything happening in that market in the last couple of weeks?
Clearly, urea's moved like this. Flexen's moved up a little bit, and in fact, granular ammonium sulfate's now starting to move up a little bit. The difference is urea's moved up a lot, even with UAN going up a little bit. The Flexen to urea price difference now, I mean, if you go back to pre-Russia-Ukraine war, we had differentials between the two. You're paying about a 25% premium of nitrogen for Flexen over urea. Mm-hmm. When the Russia-Ukraine war, that got up to nearly 40%, meaning urea was compellingly more competitive on a nitrogen basis. And what we see in the prices, domestic prices here now, is a premium of somewhere around 6 to 8%. Urea being slightly more affordable, which means in relative terms, Flexen is as affordable as it's been since well before the Russia-Ukraine war.
So a good opportunity then to, take a nitrogen position there for people who have the ability to contract Flexen. And you mentioned granular ammonium sulfate. I guess that seems like now a reasonably well-priced nitrogen position as well.
Well, it is relative to urea too. We've got stock coming in, and we're also now looking at cargoes that'll come in for sort of that NS top-up timing. So relative to urea, Gran NS, ammonium sulfate costs are relatively low compared with urea, and much more relatively affordable than what urea is right now, or comparative to urea.
Yeah, and we've got granular product available to meet that pre-seeding application window as well, which we know we've talked about a lot over the last 6 months or so. We're expecting to see a shift out of sort of sugar ammonium sulfate as a result of the nickel phase out into more of that granular product.
Exactly, Gray. Yep.
Okay, we've talked about nitrogen and a little bit of sulfur there. Anything on phosphates or potash that's moved in the last couple of weeks?
It's been the story of the phosphates for some time now. They've been relatively stable. Product coming in, sheds starting to get full with product going in, production running hard, and it's probably now time when we think about holy hell, these ships are coming in. We got to start moving it out onto trucks and starting to think about getting it on a farm so we can continue producing and getting further ships in to meet that peak for seeding.
Main thought then is port congestion and how that's starting to play out. We know that was a big theme last year, and we've talked about some early indications that it could be even more compressed this year. How are we seeing the import berths looking?
It's tight, particularly at Kwinana. It's been very tight through January. February looks a little bit freed up, and then as we get into March and April, it's going to get very tight. There's a lot of ships coming in. Again, it's not just fertiliser, there's everything else that comes in through the ports here at Kwinana. And there happens to be a berth shut at the back end of March and early April, which is going to exacerbate things. And I think we know that we're going to get better customer experience and ability to meet the market need by getting things out on farm quickly, so we can start getting more ships in and production in to meet future demand.
And as you say, it's not just fertiliser coming in these bulk berths now in Kwinana. I, for one, will be making sure my car's full of diesel when that berth shut comes in March.
Yeah, quite right, Craig. Yeah.
Okay, on that bombshell, thank you, Ben. We've covered off all the key macronutrients and a little bit on port congestion. Thanks again for joining us.
Cheers, Craig. Thank you.
And thank you all out there in fertiliser world. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is provided as general information only. The content of this podcast is not a recommendation and has been prepared without taking your objectives or circumstances into account. Before acting on the content of this, you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances and seek independent advice.